with the Fallout show coming out, I'm sure me and I'm sure a lot of you are pretty pumped about Fallout again. You know, I love the games. I have picked up a couple different figures, 3 from Brick Tactical, Nazi Bricks. I pretty much have all their power armors at this point. My favorite, though, is the Eclipse graphics. Vault suit here. One thing you'll know about all these is that they're all UV printed. Nobody has really put out pad printed parts for the franchise, which is what I would prefer to collect, honestly. But for some of these more detailed designs, UV is probably a little better suited for it anyway. I think Eclipse puts out better quality parts than the Brick Tactical ones, which end up being a little busy and don't really look the best. They've put out a couple other characters that I didn't collect just because I didn't like the design that much. One of those figures that I didn't like enough to pick up from them is one that we'll take a look at today from a different company, being the Brick Mania Apocalypse Ranger, obviously based on the NCR Ranger from Fallout New Vegas. If you saw the show, minor spoiler. If you want to avoid that, skip ahead a bit, but a couple of civilians in the Fallout TV show wore this armor design. So, coincidence, but also not really a coincidence. It's very cool that Brickmania put out these figures to have as an anniversary figure, I believe, for their 2 California stores, which would tie into the new California Republic from the game being in California, and that is where this armor comes from. Like the design in the front here, pretty simple. The render of the character, font's cool and matches the Fallout New Vegas font a little bit. I don't think it's a perfect match. And I got a little extra too where I got their perfect caliber mini nuke, which is printed on a Brick Arms mini nuke, which I didn't have one of those yet. I thought it'd be kind of cool to get the printed version. On the back, motif from the front is continuing on the back a little bit, but nothing super detailed there. Some write-ups. It's official LEGO parts other than their 3D molded helmet and some other bits, but excited to take a look at this, so let's go ahead and get it out and get it on the stand. Just quick looking at the mini nuke. It is going to be on olive, I believe, with a red top. And what makes it perfect caliber is that they match up the design with their printing to basically be a copy of the actual weapon, or in this case, the mini nuke here. There's that yellow band printed all the way around with some different rust markings. There's some bolts going around the outside, which I believe are molded on maybe to begin with, and they just printed over them as well, but they might also just be printed and not on the mold. Not sure since I don't have the unprinted version, and when it comes to UV, it usually adds a little bit of a bump or texture to it anyway, so kind of hard to say either way there. But very excited to get this as well to add to my Fallout displays. I think it is a lot better when it is printed versus the unprinted one, which I do think I have one somewhere from Brick Tactical, which is also a decent piece, but glad to have a more definitive version. Let's get to the figure. And looking at the Ranger, I am very impressed with the product here. You can see that it also comes with a printed anti-material rifle, which looks great and is probably also perfect caliber, maybe. I'm not really sure the classification since I don't collect a lot of the Brickmania figures, but there are little printed details all over to make this even better of a product. I believe the gun is going to be Brick Arms as well, since it doesn't seem to be 3D printed. But more detail, that is cool. It seems a little big maybe on the scaling side, but that ends up happening to LEGO official guns as well. So can't complain too much. See if I can kind of get the hands in a bit of a shooting position. Wasn't really able to do that, but I did kind of imply it in a two-handed stance like he's carrying it. I'm sure you could kind of wiggle this around a little bit more to make it look a little more natural. But that's what you can do with the gun. I'll just take that off. And one of the things that kind of stands out to me that I'm not sure if I like it or not is the fabric coat here, where it just doesn't really feel like it's sitting very naturally when you move the arms especially. Slides around a little bit, so I'm sure this is going to be one of those things that you just have to fight it a little bit just by wiggling the arms and pulling on it just to make it a bit more flat. And you can see it's actually printed as well, so it's not like you can take it off and just throw on a different one. Unfortunately, you're kind of stuck with this one since it does have that extra detailing. It'd be kind of a shame to get rid of it. But I do like the flexibility of the cloth where kind of flows a little bit more naturally, isn't super stiff. So pluses and minuses there on that. See in the arms that there are some bands sort of printed on there too. And on the back of the jacket there is whatever pouches or device on the back there. Could be a backpack of some sort, but I think it is probably, if I remember right, some sort of air filter or air cooling system. Helmet is cool too. It is 3D printed, so if you really look at it, you'll be able to see some of the grain lines from the print. But I do like the red eyes. I think that's a good effect. And I have been looking into buying a 3D printed kit to paint my own Ranger, which is great that I was able to get a printed version that'll end up just a little bit better. And I've just been in between which one to get, since I think this helmet design ends up being a little bit more complicated to hit on the head. It's just like a perfect design. So I know Brick Tactical, they use just an army helmet on a head with the mask printed on there. And then Input Bricks, I just didn't have anything else I wanted to buy at the time. So I think that was kind of my top option. But I think this looks great and scales pretty well with the minifigure and has a great amount of detail versus being more simplified. So no complaints there. I think the helmet probably should be a bit of a different color than the rest of the helmet. And I can't tell, it does seem like it does have a bit of a green hue to it, but it doesn't stand out enough to me to say either way. But I think that is something that I would have preferred if it did have more of that army green tint. Getting that off, you can see that it does have a generic male expression of some sort. Not sure if this is supposed to be a character model or anything. And back of the helmet is going to be pretty generic as well. Nothing super crazy there, but that's just the design from the game. Getting a look at that. Looks pretty good. It's a good face design, honestly. And the jacket's probably covering up some stuff too, so I'll go ahead and take that off too. And that just brings me another complaint that I usually have from those fabric trench coats or lab coats, whatever it is, that you have to take the arms off and put them back on every time you want to take it off. And I'm sure just as you keep doing that, it's going to weaken the arms, especially since these are reddish brown. I just get a little worried about those. Since they do have the printing on them, it's not going to be easy to replace them. I think the legs look pretty good with that dirt and wear on them to make it seem like he was out in the desert. Armor printing is going to be completely wrapped around the torso, even has the side printing, which is cool because it usually has the jacket on. You wouldn't even notice that. Same with the back, where it has that strap continuing all the way around. And that has the star logo and another little detail, LAPD Riot, since it is kind of that riot gear that was repurposed by the people in the wasteland. So detailing here is going to be very accurate to the games. You got a little bit of a bandolier there with some bullets, holster on the side for a knife maybe, or some pistols. I do really like the legs, and you could probably toss those on somebody else as well. But very impressed, especially with that extra printing that is covered by the jacket anyway. They probably didn't have to do that, but I am glad that they were able to put together a more definitive version of the Ranger. I'll just toss the helmet on since we have the jacket off, just get a full 360 view of that unobstructed. Great piece, great printing, and I'm pretty happy with this. It seems like they're teasing more Fallout characters down the line. I'll probably end up getting those as well if I can. One thing to note about this is that it was a bit of an exclusive, where it was released at the California events in store, and I believe every retail location got a couple of these. So thank you to my friend Anthony for picking one of these up for me, since I wasn't able to go to a Brickmania store. And I'm glad to have another Fallout figure, especially one that looks this great. Let's get to some comparisons and the final verdict. Coming from a fan of the franchise, I'm just glad to have another great Fallout minifigure. Detailing on this is going to be really great. You know, probably strays a little bit too far to the overly detailed area, I guess I would say, compared to what Lego would probably do themselves, since it does have that extra shading on the legs especially, and lots of different coloring details on the torso and all that. Can't complain though. If it looks good, that's all that counts for me. See it next to another one of the Brickmania figures I've reviewed recently from Inglourious Bastards. Those two next to each other, you can see, you know, printed guns on both of those. Just great detailing, great coloring that they end up doing, where they will print on the legs to make them seem a different color. Another video game, post-apocalyptic survivor, being Joel from The Last of Us, and those Brick Tactical minifigures that I showed off again. You know, these just have a little bit more of that cartoony aesthetic, especially the ghoul that's pretty much ripped straight out of Fallout 3 in New Vegas. The other ones, they kind of suffer from that over-detailedness, where it's just very busy and not in a good way. But having the Vault Dweller here with Eclipse graphics parts mixed with some of the Brick Tactical arms, think these two next to each other look really great. And the mini nuke, of course. Another great accessory, great printing, great detailing. Adds a lot to the collection. And I am excited to see what they do next. I'm probably going to pick up any Fallout figure that they put out if they are this quality. Fabric parts that they use there, I don't know about that. You know, it is printed, so there's the extra detailing with like the specs and that backpack sort of print on it. So it adds a bit, and you can't just take it off, unfortunately. But I go back and forth. I can understand why people would want the actual fabric trench coat type of piece, but I just get worried in the long term. If you're moving around the arms a lot, you're going to end up tearing the coat eventually. So it's just not going to be super sustainable long term. But looking at it, it does look pretty good. Honestly, I don't have very many figures that do have fabric parts like that. So this one's going to stand out in a good way. And just seeing this figure, like I said, excited for what they're going to put out next. And I'm just excited to put it in a build in some way. I'm going to have to figure out what I'm actually going to be building for my next Fallout mock. But hopefully it turns out good and I can use all these figures in it in some way. If you want to see more LEGO Fallout videos or custom LEGO videos overall, check out the videos on my channel. I've been Brick Radiop. I'll see you in the next video.